Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's get started with Week 51's Word Nerd Wednesday. Now, last series we bounced back and forth between words from our Third Age Thursday readings, which were mostly in A Long Expected Party, as well as from our Second Age Saturday readings in the story of Aldarion and Arendis. This time around, I'm going to be doing the same thing, picking words from the stuff that I'm reading. Now, last week we looked at an important name from Aldarion and Arendis. It was the name Ereinion Gil-galad. Today, we're going to take a look at two more important names from that letter. First, the name of Gil-galad's alleged father, Fingon, and then a name that Gil-galad references at the end of the letter, Manwë. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the whole parentage of Gil-galad issue. Maybe that's a mailbag Monday if somebody wants to ask. But I do want to talk about the name of Gil-galad's father, at least according to the story here in Unfinished Tales, and that is Fingon. In the earliest drafts of the Silmarillion, this character's name was Finwë, but by the 1930s he was renamed as Fingon, and that name was firmly in place by the time Tolkien reworked the Quenta Silmarillion in 1937 and 38. At that point, though, the name was Noldorin, and it was a derivative of Findicano, which consisted of the element Finde, meaning skill, and the element Con, meaning valor, which becomes Gon as a suffix. So originally his name meant skillful valor, or valorous skill, I suppose. Now, in Parma Eldalamberon 17, we learned that at one point Tolkien considered, and then rejected, the name Fingorn, from Finwë plus Gorn, meaning revered. Now that's the same Gorn we see in Aragorn's name, for example. Eventually, Tolkien landed on a Quenya father name of Findicano, meaning, believe it or not, hare shout. This consists of two elements, Finde, meaning hare, and Kano, which is commander, but also crier, or herald, and that's the shout. Now, for more on this element, I'm going to go to the Shibboleth of Feanor again, found in the Peoples of Middle-earth, Volume 12 of the History of Middle-earth. Kano meant in Quenya commander, usually as the title of a lesser chief, especially one acting as the deputy of one higher in rank. The synderizing of these names as Fingon and Turgon, which came from Turkano, shows knowledge of the sound changes distinguishing Sindarin from Telerin, but disregards meaning. If these names had actually been ancient Sindarin names, they would, at the time of the coming of the exiles, have taken the forms Fingon and Turgon, but they would not have had their Quenya meanings, if interpretable at all. Possibly they would have conveyed hare shout and master shout. Now, Tolkien continues, with regard to Findicano Fingon, it may be noted that the first element was certainly Quenya Finde, hair, a tress or plait of hair. In the case of Fingon, it was suitable. He wore his long dark hair in great plaits braided with gold. Now, going back to the Kano element in that passage, there's a helpful footnote that reads in part, it was a derivative of common Eldarin Kan, cry, call aloud, which developed divergent meanings, like call in English, depending on the purposes for which a loud voice would be used. For example, to take an oath, make a vow or promise, to announce important news or messages and orders, to issue orders and commands in person, to call for, to name a thing or person desired, to summons. In Quenya, the sense command had become the usual one, to issue orders in person, whether by derived authority or one's own. When applied to things, it meant demand. Now, of course, as a cinderized version of the Quenya name, the meaning has changed a little. While Findicano means hare shout, when it's cinderized, the Fin means a single hair or filament, like Glorfindel golden hair, Finrod noble hair, while the Gon suffix means lord or prince, as in Turgon, which is ruling lord. Now, we have just enough time to chat a bit about a name that Fingon references at the end of the letter, in a benediction of sorts, when he says, Manwë keep you under the one, and send fair wind to your sails. I don't think I've ever done any word nerdery on the name of the king of the Valar, so let's take a few minutes to take a quick look at it. His name means blessed being or blessed one, and it's an adaptation of his original Valarin name. Now, I'm not sure how to pronounce Valarin. It's not Sindarin or Quenya, and it looks like it's Manawenuz. Manawenuz. Now that meant a little bit more. That meant blessed one closest in accord with Eru. Now the we suffix, the we suffix, is something we often see in Quenyan first stage names. Think Varanwe, Olwe, Finwë, Ingwe, and more. It's derived from a root that means person, being, individual. And there is a lot more there because the suffix is typically, but not always, masculine. And the thing is, I could probably do an entire Word Nerd Wednesday on just that way suffix, but I'm going to hold off. It's maybe too deep a dive even for this segment, and it gets pretty convoluted in terms of the linguistic history. Instead, I'm going to look at the man element. It's a root for good morally, blessed, holy, unmarred, free from evil. Now, Tolkien actually elaborates on this. He explains this man implies that a person or thing is relatively or absolutely unmarred. That is, in Elvish thought, unaffected by the disorders introduced into Arda by Morgoth, and therefore is true to its nature and function. If applied to mind or spirit, it is more or less equivalent to morally good. But applied to bodies, it naturally refers to health and to absence of distortions, damages, blemishes, etc. Now, not surprisingly, this explanation is found in Parma Eldalamberon number 17. And by the way, another word with this element that you might recognize is the land where the Valar reside, Aman, the Blessed Realm. Now, interestingly, Manwë is one of the names that never changed. It dates back to the very earliest versions of Lost Tales, though at that point the derivation was originally said to come from primitive Elvish before it was eventually decided that it came from Valoran itself. Now, Manwë's other names or epithets include Sulimo, that's Quenya for Lord of the Breath of Arda, it literally means breather. He also held the role of Elder King, which is Ran Enor in Sindarin. And folks, that is it for today's Word Nerd Wednesday. But come back next week as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. And if there's a word you want to know more about, just let me know. Email barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/Tolkien Times. Learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, monthly hangout with me, bonus episodes, and more. And then join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know the drill. Like and subscribe. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps and follow @Tolkien Times on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.